Donald Trump making his closing argument ahead of next week's midterms. And he brought his message to an interview with Jonathan Karl of ABC News. It's only 2.5 minutes long, but it kept our fact-checking very busy. And Andrew, that would mean you.
Yeah, grab your shovel and your waders, Rich, because we are going in deep. Here's how the interview began.
Maybe 15,000 active duty U.S. military to the border, more than we have fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan, more than we have fighting ISIS in Syria.
That's true. 15,000 troops would be more on the border than we have in Afghanistan. It's well more than our forces in Iraq and Syria combined as well.
You're really going to do that?
It's very important. We have to have a wall of people, very highly trained people, terrific, dedicated patriots. That's what they are. You have caravans coming up that look a lot larger than it's reported, actually.
That's a lie. Caravans always lose people, not gain them. The closest caravan is now at 3,500 people. That's down from 5,000. And the administration, as it turns out, was told before any orders to beef up security on the border that only a small percentage of those in the caravan would actually make it to the U.S. border.
And I'm pretty good at estimating crowd size, and I will tell you, they look a lot bigger than people would think.
This is the easiest lie to debunk. Trump is terrible at estimating crowd size, as we learned after his inauguration. The only one who might disagree is this guy.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe. These attempts to lessen the enthusiasm of the inauguration are shameful and wrong.
He was so angry and so wrong. Okay, back to the president.
They had a very rough one just formed in El Salvador now, if you can believe it, and it was very nasty. You saw what took place.
Not true. The migrants are leaving to escape violence, poverty, and corruption, not to bring violence with them. They're also not any sort of immediate threat. The closest caravan is 866 miles from the nearest border crossing into the U.S. That's 29 days of walking if the group can continue to walk 30 miles a day. The other group is 43 days away.
What we see is deeply impoverished people fleeing violence, many of them women and children. You're going to send 15,000 active duty U.S. military?
Mostly men, and it's actually mostly young men, and a lot of rough people, John. If you look, it's been well reported, it's a lot of young people, a lot of young men, and they have been doing this, they're pushing the women right up into the front, not good, and they're pushing a few kids right up to the front. But if you take a look at the caravans, and now there's more than one. I mean, there's 2 or 3 forming. You take a look at it, you have a lot of very tough, strong, young men.
All right, that is stretching the truth at best. This is what the caravan looks like. It's a mix of women and men and children. Most of them are young. Older people tend not to walk thousands of miles, if you do that math. But being a young man or being tough isn't the same as being a violent man. But, continue, Mr. President.
You know the law. I mean, you're the president. Yep. They can't arrest people crossing the border. They can't.
It depends. It depends. National emergency covers a lot of territory. They can't invade our country. You look at that; it almost looks like an invasion. It really does look like an invasion.
Those caravans are an invasion?
Oh, I think so. I think when you look at some of them, when you look at some of the people within the caravan, yeah, I think it could be considered an invasion of our country. We can't have it.
There's a reason the president keeps referring to these people as an invasion. Defending against an invasion actually would give the president constitutional authority to use troops at the border. But, look at the people. Does this look like an invasion to you? Also, the Border Patrol can handle the load. Every day, agents deal with 700,000 people crossing our land borders. They arrest 850 people every day, screening out criminals, inadmissible people, and security concerns, all without the help of the Army.
These are some of the poorest people in the world coming up here.
There's some dangerous people. These are some rough people. I mean, you look at MS-13. They come from that area. This is a very rough group of people coming up.
Not true. Actually, MS-13 is an American creation that got exported back, but let's not digress. No indication that anybody in the caravan is actually a criminal. And by the way, if they were linked to MS-13, they would not be allowed in the United States. Continue.
Look what they did to the Mexican army at the border. Look at the skirmish they just had. That was a very bad thing for the Mexican army. That was not easy. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully there won't be a confrontation.
Now here the president is referencing a week-old incident at Mexico's border with Guatemala. Migrants did push past barriers in both countries, and as a result they got hit with tear gas and rubber bullets. One migrant was killed when a rubber bullet hit him in the head. Dozens of migrants were injured, and while there are reports of some minor injuries to some Mexican soldiers, None of those reports have actually been confirmed. Rich?
You know, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, but it's
Where do you start?
Well, not even with what we've heard, but Jonathan Karl also pressed him about telling the truth, because he played a clip. He said, you promised to be the most truthful president. You volunteered that you were going to always be true with the American people. He goes, I do it when I can. My point is, do you think he believes what he's saying, or that exaggeration or making stuff out of thin air, remember how many jobs he went from 40,000 literally in the beginning of the week to 1 million, that this one particular job creation, venture that he was doing had created, just made up these numbers out of thin air. Do you think he knows he's lying when he's doing it?
Yeah, but I think, I forgot the author, but the article that I thought was very interesting was he was basically, for the first time, almost defending himself and saying, I say these things because it got me elected. Not because it's true, not because it's good for the country, but it got me elected, so I'm going to continue to do it. And then you hear that his family is saying, stop doing it, but he's saying that's what got me elected. Think about it. You had a massacre in Pittsburgh, and he's saying, I'm doing it because it helped me get elected. That's pretty sinful.
We're going to talk about this later in the show, Richard, and I know you went to Eastern Europe and you saw firsthand about the rise of some pretty scary elements that you don't have to go that far back in history to see some pretty scary echoes of. But the idea that he had to be forced to say anti-Semitism, he didn't want to say it because his base wouldn't like it. I just don't know. I don't know the lasting damage, nobody does, that all this is causing, but there's just norms that are just so far gone right now.
With any luck, we'll be able to say a week from today that the American people finally looked at him and said, it's enough.
Enough already.
And I think that's what's happening. And I think this discussion of a blue wave is not just a question of politics and policy. It's a referendum on a systematic set of lies which are undercutting the ability of Americans to deal with their political and social systems in any coherent way.
I'm very curious, Bill, from your end. Thankfully, I have not seen a mini version of Trump spring out here. He's a unique personal creation. But have you seen hints of others saying, why do I need to tell the truth, Bill? I know you're not my campaign manager, but when people are talking to you, be like, why don't I go to his playbook? Look at all the free media I'll get if I just say crazy stuff. It doesn't matter if it's true. It's almost better if it isn't.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm beginning to see it. And by the way, I think Trump wins that interview hands down, honestly. Even if there are inaccuracies in there, you put the average American in front of there, I think he wins that interview. They know where he's coming from.
His base. But do you, every metric you see of that
I'm not part of
suburban
his base,
housewife,
but I think beyond his
not...
base, I could see where he's coming from. It sounds like he's defending us. You know,
really think a lot of voters can fact check it?
But Richard,
you're right.
But your question is great. The outrageous thing, yes, I've seen people use it. I don't know, and history will tell whether others can pull it off successfully or whether Donald Trump truly is unique. But what I do see is that campaigns no longer have to be truthful and they can get away with it because the news cycle moves too fast. And you can put up ads that are just not true and they don't get pulled down. And they'll stay up there because the news cycle moves too fast. It's on to the next thing. You can say anything now.
Where is that working?
I've seen it working in campaigns in New York, and I won't get into it because I don't want to bring my campaign into it right now. But I've seen false things said that would have been pulled down 10 years ago. You can now get away with it. Almost anything you can get away with.
I think, contrary to, I know where your heart is, and I agree with it, and I agree with your hope, because that's my hope. But I think everybody's going to be disappointed with the election. I think it's not going to be as clear-cut as people think. I think the Republicans hold on to the Senate, maybe even gain, and they may lose the House. So, now you'll be able to see the Democrats have some interaction with the president in a way that means the legislature is doing its job, hopefully. If the Democrats don't do what Republicans did, the worst thing Republicans did was try to impeach Bill Clinton. We were like this, and we went to impeach him, and we went like this. We lost in the third cycle of an election because of it.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
If the House goes Democratic, who takes the blame?
The House Republicans,
Not the president.
Not the president.
Well, I love the president today says, I'm not going to blame people if they lose. Like, he's already absolved himself. But anyway,
right.
okay, I got to hit a break here real quickly. When we come back, we're going to pick up this conversation. We'll take a look at the midterms, who's up, who's down, and where is all the money going? That's always a tell in the closing week, where the parties decide to put their resources. We'll talk about that after this.